Now that the rear bulkhead is stabilized, it is time to run the stringers forward up under the little front bedroom, which means I need to remove this cabinet, these stairs, this cabinet, and cut a bunch of wood and move a bunch of stuff. Seems like all I do all day long is move stuff from one end of the boat to the other. And I would also like to reduce the size of this cabinet so I can push these steps to the port side of the boat, so I can add 3 steps. 2 is pretty steep, but if I add 3, they're going to stick out. If I leave them where they are, they're going to stick out in front of the refrigerator. So if I can scoot them over a little bit, that may happen. It may not, but that may happen. I would like for that to happen. Okay, time to get busy. Okay, got started on the demo and discovered a few things. The shower faucet has been replaced. It looks pretty new. And they rerouted the copper lines outside the wall, and then they put another wall over it, which is okay. This grill was in the main cabin, and we weren't sure what it was, but it's just an electric heater. It's not connected to anything. It's just got a wire into it, and it blows hot air into the other room. And up in the V-berth, they had a vent in the wall, and we weren't sure what it was, and it is basically nothing. It was just letting air go underneath the steps, which were, pretty much closed off, so it didn't do much. Okay, we're going to continue. Now you can see how the boat was framed. On the stringers, they laid a 1x4, and then they laid a 1/2-inch plywood on top. Nothing was really fastened very secure, so it didn't add to the structural integrity of the boat. We're going to go back with 3/4 glued and screwed, so it will help out a lot. Okay, the middle stringer, the deep one, it looks pretty good. Maybe with some luck, when we pull out the front bedroom, it'll be good, and then all I need to do is splice it somewhere along in here. So this is the middle stringer, the number 2 and 3 of 5, and it's gone. I've only accidentally cut 1 wire. As long as I know I cut it, I can fix it. No big surprises. The little board that runs down the wall is in good shape. That's a nice surprise. And the first block seems to be in good shape. But the second, this stringer and this stringer are done. As is the 2 stringers that went under the shower. So what I'll have to do is cut this bulkhead up about 1 foot and go on the back side where they have a really nice little fiberglass cast piece. I'll have to booger it all up, but I can't fix it if I can't get to it, so we got to keep tearing stuff out. Okay, it's been a long, nasty day, but I have cut through. The good news is the fiberglass pan that goes under the bedroom in the front had a separation between the wall and the pan, so I was able to cut the wall without damaging the pan. Even though we will have to cut the pan, we can do it in a more controlled manner from the other side. The other good news is stringer number 1, the smallest ones, they seem to die. This seems to be the end of them at this low bulkhead. I don't think they go any further. And the other 3, they step down dramatically. They're not as tall. So that's just going to make them smaller and lighter and easier to deal with. It's been a hot, nasty day, but the worst is over with, except for getting in the front and cutting that fiberglass pan. That's not good. This is what it looks like. So repairing the low bulkhead and repairing the stringers is not that hard of a carpentry job. It's just such a big deal to get to them. That's the okay. After gnawing on this front of this boat for a little while longer, the fiberglass tub, which is the V-berth, sits on top of a sheet of plywood, which sits on top of the stringers under it. The stringers are much shorter than they are back here, but they do continue. At first I thought they ended. So we'll have to go up front and cut out the bottom part of the tub and replace the stringers, more of the same. Everything's pretty nasty, but it's doable. It's just getting to it is what makes it such a challenge. Before I start gluing up the laminated stringers heading forward, I did some preliminary measurements, and I put my longest straight edge on top of the stringer. That's the far right one, and I came out and measured 5 5/8 from the 5th step, because that's what it measures when you glue them together if you make them all the same thickness. And it looks like I'm going to be about 1 inch higher above the original floor in the front of the boat versus the back of the boat. I just checked that one stringer. I'm going to check 2 more stringers and see what it is. I could plane the top down and get it down level, or I could just let it be 1 inch higher. I don't know that it's going to ever make any difference, but that's what I'm doing now. I'm doing some measurements before I start gluing. Checking the center stringer. I'm definitely rising as I go toward the front of the boat. This one's probably a little more accurate because I have more overlap and it's closer to the bulkhead. So I did this a couple weeks ago and I seem to be like within 3/4 of an inch front to back, but now it looks like I'm going to be 1.5 inches front to back. Not sure what to do about it. I could just lay them all in and then plane them down in place, except that I have glass on top of some of these, but that could be grinded off. So I think I'll make them full size, and then the cypress is soft and it planes easy. I'll set the first 2, plane them as much as I can without an obvious hump in the floor right from the middle back, and then I'll make the rest of them match up with the skill saw before I glue them down. Okay, moving forward, I do know that if I continue to make up the new stringer with the same thickness laminations, the same number of laminations, when I get to the bulkhead, I need to drop, in this instance, 6 inches. And actually, since the tops of them are all the same, they will all need to drop 6 inches. So I can measure from where the bulkhead was, the longest piece, and then stack them up with each succeeding piece being 1 foot shorter. And when I get 6 inches thick, then they can shoot forward as long as my pieces are, because it goes a long ways under the bed up front. And I can proceed. So that's what we're going to do next. So I glue up the lamination from this squiggly line up. I don't know if you can see that. You should be able to see that. And I plane them, and I bring them to the boat, and I adjust these little this stagger joint, kind of fit it in better at the boat, and I put a couple screws in it. So the staggered part is fitting up well with the existing stringers. The rest of this thing is just cantilevered out over midair because it's not deep enough yet. So that's kind of the key. With it in place and screwed down, I take a spacer, random length. It doesn't make that much difference. It just has to fit. And I scribe the bottom of the boat where it hits the hull, and I put a mark up here, and I'll follow it along. I'll follow it along, follow it along. And I do that on both sides. And I know the length of this. This is 8 inches, but it could be pretty much anything. So then I take it out of the boat and bring it back here. And by setting this on the line, I know how much material I need to add to have enough material. So then I glue it on and let it dry. And then I come back with the same scribe, and I mark this line, which is the line that I have to cut the board by to make it fit the hull. I do both sides. They're not the same because the bottom is sloped, and I'll cut the inside of the board to the line, or maybe a little short, and that will leave some material on the, that will make the upper part of the slope a little long, and then I take the power plane and I plane it down to fit. And then after that, I cut my little limber hole, I trim the end square because it is the right length, and then I go make a trial fit. It should be off of the floor a little bit to allow for fiberglass and for caulk. I don't want it touching the floor at this point. And if it all fits, I'll bring it back out of the boat and I fiberglass the bottom to make sure I don't get water coming into my beam. And when that's dry, I sand it lightly so I don't get any shards in my fingers, and go put it in the boat. And I epoxy the stagger joint, caulk the bottom to the floor. And when all that sets up, I will glass it to the boat, 2 layers of glass on each side, and then in the corners, and then in my blocking. And it better be enough. So back in the boat to do a test fit. This one, the one on the right, the starboard one, fits pretty good everywhere except I need to plane a little bump off the bottom of that corner. I got it marked with a pen. This one needs to plane on the whole length on the up angle side. I didn't cut enough of a bevel. Measuring from my string down, trying to get my 8 3/4 inches. This one's almost perfect. This one, unfortunately, is going to be low, which means I'll probably add a strip on top when it's all said and done to make the plywood a little level. It's about a 1/4 inch low. I'm not sure why. This can be very frustrating, but we're making it. We're getting closer all the time. Front half of the very last stringer. Yay! I'm getting ready to glass. This is actually the bottom. I glassed the bottom just to protect it from water. And we'll let it dry and we'll flip it over and put it in the boat. This is where it pays to be a pig like me, because all this sawdust on the floor will keep the dripping polyester from sticking, so cleanup will be much easier. Alright, the last stringer, the last job of glassing the bottom. I don't claim to be a fiberglass expert, but I'll share what I know. I started out using some chop mat that I had, I don't know where from, but I had a lot of it, and it was a little tricky to bend on these outside corners, even though I have a radius. It worked great in the boat on the inside radiuses, but not so much on the outside radiuses. I finally used it all up and I ordered some more chop mat off of the internet, and this is 1.5 ounces, and this bends much easier than what I had. So apparently I had some 2-ounce material. I think that's the next thickest size. So if you're going to bend outside radiuses, I'll recommend the 1.5 ounces, even if you have to go 2 layers. Inside radiuses, 2 ounces is good. I started using the graduated cups to get a known amount of rosin. And I bought this little deal where you squeeze the jar until you get the right amount of hardener up top and pour it out. It's simple to use, and it makes for consistent results. Highly recommend that. Can't have too many gloves. Sometimes I change them 3 times during one little batch. If my hands get all sticky and full of fibers, just drop the gloves on the ground, get another pair. It makes the ugly job more pleasant. And lastly, I have a long sleeve t-shirt that I have dedicated to doing glass work, and it's sacrificial. When I'm through with this boat, it's going in the garbage, but it protects your forearms and from getting sticky all over them, and you're definitely going to ruin the shirt. So don't wear short sleeve shirts because you get on your forearms. It's nasty. Now that's just for applying the wet rosin. If you're going to grind, you really need the little paper suit because this stuff is really obnoxious. I have a habit of saying, well, I'm just going to grind this a little bit. I don't need to put on a paper suit, and I grind it and I say, damn, why didn't I put on a paper suit? This stuff is miserable.